the news of the day, and really it's been the news of the last week or so. Again, it was first reported by Chris Ballas of the Wolverine, is that a new contract is in the works, presumably in the next month or so, for head coach Jim Harbaugh. Ballas reported it last week. I know there's been kind of some public outcry over it, wanting to make him the biggest or the highest paid coach in the Big Ten, one of the highest paid coaches in college football. And it seems like even, with this NCAA stuff, it's still kind of looming, but there was the self-imposed suspension. We've been saying for weeks that now is just lock him up, get it done. It doesn't have to be as complicated as it's been made. And it seems that those cries were heard. Of course, Ballas reporting last week that a new contract could come sooner rather than later. Earlier today, Harbaugh comments on it and says, you just want to be somewhere where you're appreciated and you sit down with your boss. And usually that appreciation is shown in the form of a contract extension or a contract that's on the table. So basically where we're at right now and later on in the day, John U. Bacon essentially says the same thing that Chris has been reporting, where everyone in a position of power is kind of in alignment on getting this thing done. Ward Manuel speaks to the Detroit News and says that is something they hope to finalize here shortly or make a reality, I think was his exact quote. So Clayton, after all the hubbub, it seems like we are on the speeding freight train to Jim Harbaugh being the highest paid coach in the Big Ten.
Yeah, well, first of all, shout out to Chris for absolutely crushing this a week ahead of everybody, including the question asked to Jim Harbaugh on Monday with, hey, would you be open to a contract extension during the season? In the past, these things have been tabled until the offseason, but this one's a little bit different because it was kind of coming ever since he decided not to take the Denver Broncos job, comes back to Michigan. It just hasn't gotten done yet, and it seemed like the NCAA investigation, them wanting to get that wrapped up before giving him a contract to show the NCAA they're serious about it. Again, we've talked about it in the past, but it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. In my opinion, it seems like those in power at this point realize that as well. Jim Harbaugh wants a new contract. And yeah, I mean, his exact words are the same ones he said in the spring, where you want to be somewhere that wants you. And, that's reflected in a contract. And he's always been, in my opinion, more about respect and feeling the love, to use his exact terms, than money. But there's a way to show that respect and love and appreciation, and that's probably through money, pretty much. And that's kind of, it feels like where this thing is headed. But yeah, Chris on Friday adding to his Wednesday report that, this should be done in the next month, that's the timetable. And then now reports kind of confirming that today. But yeah, get it done, get this thing over with and keep moving on. But definitely interesting. I didn't know how Harbaugh was going to respond to that question today. And he was a little more blunt than I thought he was going to be. And I think, good on him for doing that. And I think the Michigan fan base is totally behind him based on the reaction we saw coming out of that noon press conference today. And they want to see this thing done. So it's good that Ward Manuel made that comment as well. But yeah, let's kind of see how this thing unfolds here in the next month. Anthony, I do want to remind people that, like I said, back when he was going to have his 4-game suspension agreed upon with the NCAA, there is literally always a twist with Jim Harbaugh. I'm not saying this isn't going to get done. I think it is going to, but you just never know. So I will throw that out there. But I think this gets resolved here in the next month, and people are ready to go.
$1.99 super chat here from Rob, who simply says, Jim Harbaugh, there is no better coach for us. And that's hard to disagree with, right? You have one of the best head coaches at any level of the sport, one of the most accomplished head coaches at any level of the sport. Obviously, he doesn't have, the big trophy to his name in either sport yet, but that's not the be all end all. I think in Thursday's show, we kind of talked about how as you head into this next era of what the Big Ten's going to look, not just this year. I mean, this year it's all hands on deck. It's Houston or bust, right? Like that's been the rallying cry. But in this future Big Ten, where next year you're going to play a loaded schedule, and take Texas off the schedule in the coming years, you're going to play one of the tougher schedules in the country. Invest in the bird in hand. It shouldn't be that complicated. Michigan football prints money. Giving him $1 million raise or $2 million raise, whatever it winds up being, isn't a huge ask. He deserves the respect of being one of the highest paid coaches in college football. And the hand wringing over it has never made sense. The tentativeness from administration has never made sense. And typically when these things have come up in season, it's always, we choose to sit down at the end of the season and reevaluate that. But you're right. This was kind of the most proactive that maybe proactive is not the word, but it was definitely the most transparent. We've heard Jim Harbaugh on this topic. He called it a 3.5 year thing, which do the math. You can kind of see where that leads back to. But yeah, like we said before, I mean, this is, and Rob chimes in again, who says $1.99. This is worth repeating. And I assume that goes back to his initial
No, I
message.
think it goes to JC's point. Rick's point here.
From Rick Mahler says, get the contract done now so the NFL rumors go away before recruits sign. Gives us a better shot at flips and the class of 25. I agree with that too. That's why, again, next week is Michigan State week. We'll get into all that when it's time to get there. But, when you are a school like a Michigan State or like Nebraska last year, where you dismiss your coach early on in the season, you want to have a head coach in place well in advance of signing day or before signing day to not only keep those guys around, but also start building for the future. And this is obviously a different situation. Michigan has an entrenched head coach, but the rumors and the narratives are what they have been, is that as long as that itch is there, that Jim Harbaugh will maybe want to scratch it, but you can also scratch that itch by paying the man what he's worth at Michigan right now. And we'll see what things look, because again, this seems like an inevitability. Clayton brought up the great point where there's always some kind of plot twist, but before you get there, I mean, like I said, we'll see what that contract looks like. If, buyout numbers are always something where if the buyout's super low, there's something that kind of would never trigger you or, stop you from going to the NFL. But I really do feel like if this university, this administration takes the step it needs to show this man the respect he deserves, because he's coming up on 100 wins with the program. He's done, even the last 2 years are two of the most accomplished seasons you've had in program history. Pay the man his money, show him the respect, and I think he'll coach here until he's done coaching.
Yeah, it's a great initial point by Rob. It's kind of, we talked about it last week, but he's one of the best coaches in the game. He also happens to have grown up here. His dad coached here. He played here. And then decides to come back from the NFL. I mean, sometimes you lose sight of that because we're 9 years removed from that, but that was an incredible month of, again, Chris Ballas was all over it here at the Wolverine.com, but just following along in the people in the national media, and no one in NFL circles could believe he would do what he did and decides to come back. So that shouldn't be lost on people either. But I agree. There's no better coach for Michigan. Not only is he a great coach, but he's perfect fit for U of M. And then, it helps recruiting. It helps, just kind of get this thing settled. And then we do have, kind of the question as well from JC, who says, if Harbaugh re-signs and is the highest paid coach in the Big Ten, do you still see him listening to offers in 2024 or NFL offers in 2024? I'm not willing to sit here and predict one way or the other at this point.
No man knows the future.
No man knows the future it rings true more and more by the day, because and really by the year when it comes to Jim Harbaugh, because you can get all sorts of predictions and people reporting predictions, and someone close to him says this and someone close to him says that, and this person says he won't go, this person says he would go. It's a done deal, Bruce Feldman reported, if he got an offer last year. Look, unless it's him telling you what it is, what's going to happen, and even then he's unpredictable, but unless it's him telling you, it's just a prediction. So I'm not going to sit here and predict. I think it's possible either way. I know it's kind of a cop-out, but it's truly how I feel on it. I mean, what's the difference between one guy weighing in or the other? Because at the end of the day, he's going to make his decision, and he's definitely close to the vest when it comes to this stuff.
Yeah, I think to kind of wrap on this, when you talk about NFL or college or what his future looks like, if there's not a huge buyout in this new deal, I mean, nothing would stop him from going, because there could always be a team, the Denver Broncos. I mean, it sounded like they were ready to give him 14, 15, maybe $16 million. If someone like the Las Vegas Raiders say, we'll give you $18 million, $20 million, whatever it is, and the buyout's low, I mean, never say never, but I do think in his heart of hearts, he wants to see this through here. And now that they are so close to not only maybe winning a national title this year, but having this window where you can kind of kick the door open to stay in the conversation, I think that's as close to, championship glory or whatever it is. It's hard to build that in the NFL. I mean, you see it time and time again. You've kind of got, for Harbaugh, you've got the bird in hand at Michigan now where the culture's turned around. You feel like you've got the talent. You've got the guys in place to keep this sustainably moving forward. Pay the man what he wants or what he needs to feel, at this point. Basically, the question you're asking if you're the University of Michigan, and you've said this before too, when we've talked both on here and off of here, it's Michigan should be coming to Harbaugh asking him what he needs to keep this program at the top of the Big Ten in the national conversation. And, I'm kind of uneasy about the idea that you kind of have to, administration sort of has to be bullied into having those discussions, but it is important that it looks like this is going to get done. And hopefully, if I had to put a timetable on it, it feels like either, who knows, maybe you announce it during Michigan State week and rub the salt in the wound if that's what it is, or maybe it's during the bye week, but it does feel like before this November stretch of games, Michigan's going to have its head coach locked up, at least on paper, for the foreseeable future at a rate that he deserves. So any other final thoughts on the Harbaugh stuff?
Yeah, I think the bye week would be the time to do it. No need going into a road game against the in-state rival to, kind of do that. I'd say keep the focus on the game, unless they do it this week, because Indiana, it's Indiana. They're terrible this year. And it was funny. I walked into Schembechler Hall today for the press conference. I'm talking to our buddy Isaiah Hull from Wolverines Wire, and I knew it was Indiana week, but he brings up Indiana or something. I'm like, oh, that's right, they're playing Indiana. You don't really think much about this opponent, so we'll get more into it as the week goes on. But yeah, this would be the week to do it, I think, or the bye week.
Yeah, we'll see what happens, but good things are happening on that front. Finally, some tangible progress on that front instead of the rumors. And again, shout out to Chris for being all over it. If anyone tells you they were on it first, they weren't. So that's just kind of
unless Chris does.
There.
Yeah.